Welcome back, everyone, to Healing for the Soul podcast, with this being season number 4, episode number 82. I'm your host, Robin Stoltman, and today I have my guest, Alan Stevens, who is a profiling communications specialist, and he's on the show talking about what is rapid trait profiling and can it help you parent better. And before we get started, remember every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. So let's get started. Thank you, Alan, for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited for today.
Well, thanks very much. We've been chatting a little bit in the past, and I thought this would be a really lovely show to come on. So thanks for the invitation.
No problem. I'm really fascinated by this because I said, I did your little free series that you had, that free little mini series for the videos, and I was just like, this is amazing. I probably shouldn't start with that, but you want to let people know about where they can find your location at for your website and how to get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, the website, as you can see down the bottom of the screen, is alanstevens.com.au. And I also have a free gift for everybody. If they put the / after that and the word free, it will take them through to my training platform where they can jump on that free course and give it a test for themselves. Because at the end of the day, we're going to talk about a lot of things today. I'm sure a lot of people are going to go, I don't really know about this. And others will say they love it, but I'll tell everybody, go out and test it for yourself. The proof is always in the pudding. It's in the eating of the pudding, not just in smelling it and looking at it. Go out and try it.
I agree with you 100%. It's really fun. So who or what inspired you to do this work that you do?
Oh, I became a world authority on reading people after having been, and believe it or not, absolutely useless at it. I'd been through 2 divorces, a lot of broken relationships. I'd had business partners who would empty the bank out. And it was after my second divorce, and as a massage therapist, working with terminally ill patients and them having coming to me for different conditions and some of them reversing their conditions. At the same time, working with a company that taught currency trading, and they brought me in to figure out why none of their students made any money. That I realized that back in those days, I used to use psychometric profiling, Myers-Briggs, DISC, and other programs. We'd ask people questions and you'd work out their personalities. But when you ask people questions, do they understand the words you're using? Is their interpretation of the words the same as yours? Is there anything emotionally going on with them at the time? Is it, what's their experiences in the past, their gender, their culture, their religions, etc.? And so I realized that the people, when we profiled them, weren't matching their personalities. And I needed a better system of doing things. And I've always lived by the philosophy that the most important thing I'll ever learn is the next thing I learn after I think I know everything. So when somebody mentioned to me one day, have you ever looked at reading faces? Well, I couldn't help myself. I got on good old Google, did some searching, and found different specialists around the world who were working in different areas. I'd already picked up my NLP. I've been working with body language since the 1970s. And I then created rapid trait profiling, which brought 4 different sciences together, 4 different modalities. And I put them together in which they've become an art form. So you might say the science and art of reading people. And that's what rapid trait profiling is all about.
I love that, especially because, like I said, I had the NLP background. So I understand the NLP. I didn't know that you've been doing it since the 70s. So you're more of a pro at it than I am, which is awesome. That's good.
Yeah, I've been around a lot longer than you too.
True.
So, this is my 71st year on the planet. So yes, I'll always be a learner. I will never stop doing that. Because the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. And when you stop growing, that's when you start rotting. And I think people who are active and keep their mind active and are out there trying to help other people as well, always live longer.
They certainly do. My grandpa was living proof of that.
Yeah.
87 years old. He's the only person that I know that was still running his own business, still doing everything until he passed. So
that's right.
What type of therapies have you learned? You mentioned some of them.
Yeah, well, I've been a massage therapist, aromatherapist. I got involved in color therapies and sound therapies, and I introduced both of those into the Singapore Hospital for the kids with ADHD. I'd worked with binaural tones to be able to, work with the mind and either lift it up, level it down, playing subliminal sounds, etc. I've Reiki master, NLP masters. As one of my friends said to me recently, Alan, you've done just about every therapy there is. It's probably time you were in therapy. And I looked at him and I went, he could be right on that one. But as I said, I've always had a fascination for learning and growing from there, but not just grabbing one modality and going, oh, this is the bee's knees. This is the best thing since sliced bread. The power in the different modalities really comes into play when you put them together. And so if a client comes in to see me, I'm thinking and listening to them, finding out what they're looking for, and then working out what's the best modality. Since I've been profiling, that's changed a fair bit because my focus is more on that area, helping people to understand themselves and understand other people. But if somebody, when I was a massage therapist, would call me up and tell me about the problems they were having, I would then be looking at, well, can I help them? What's the best modalities that I should be using to help them? And if I thought that somebody else could do a better job, that they would align with them better, then I would then get the other person to come in, redirect them to the other person.
That's a good way of doing it, especially with business, because that's one of the things that I like to do myself as well, especially is because it's more of that combination of different things, like what you said for the different modalities. Like you combine like the profiling in with NLP, and then there's other aspects. And if, you're not quite that fit, and then you pass them on to somebody else, to me, it's not just networking, but it's also helping build that relationship within business. And so that's the part that I like.
Everything's connected. Because if you stop and you think about that side of it, everyone's saying that they want raving fans. Well, raving fans only come about by giving them a service that they couldn't have got anywhere else, that they really loved what you're doing. If you're just saying, right, well, I've got to work with that person because, yes, I can get paid for it, but you can't do the best job for them, you're not going to get raving fans. I want to work with the people that, because everyone says to me, who do you associate with or where do you go? I go, I don't go where I'm tolerated. I go where I'm celebrated. And so that's how I get raving fans. My expertise in working with parents and school children, I've got clients who are still doing testimonial videos for me 10, 12 years after I've worked with them. I had one father the other week doing a Facebook Live talking to somebody else, and he just broke into tears talking about what his children have achieved, the relationship he's got with them. And I profiled his 5-year-old and 7-year-old, his 5-year-old son and 7-year-old daughter 7 years ago. And so they're the people I want to work with, the ones that I can really help. If I'm just working with somebody to make some money, then I really need to recheck what I'm doing.
I agree with you. That's what I mean. I'm like, it's not about the money. It's more about the passion and being able to help the person and know that what I'm doing is actually helping that person.
Yeah, well, as I say, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others and for the community is and always will be eternal. And that's how, when you're doing that, you feel better about yourself. The thoughts that you have create different, every thought we have creates a chemical reaction. And so if we're feeling better about ourselves, the chemicals going through our body are feeding our body, not eating it. And so the people who aren't feeling the best, they're damaging their own health. So if I want to be healthy and stay young and everything else, the best way I can do that is by helping other people. And, because when we help somebody, we always get the endorphins, we always get that good feeling. We help somebody, we've been paid.
Yes. And you get paid a lot more than what you think.
That's it. So when people ask me for support, if I can help them, I'll do that without the expectation that they have to help me back, because I believe that I've just been paid in the moment I've helped them, because I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, that is true. And I'm glad that you have more of that kind of way to look at it, because there's getting fewer and fewer people that look at it that way in the generations that are coming. that are coming up more, and it's sad. At least for me, I view it as sad because it should be more about helping other people before our, and it's not just helping before ourselves either, but it's more of that being able to get to know another person, being able to really bond with them, work with them, help them, watch them to grow. And you can do that with business. That's the amazing part, because like you said, it doesn't die with you then.
That's
because you're
it.
giving it to the community, you're giving it to other people.
That's exactly right. Just staring at your baby there, just looking at the shape of the ear. We were talking about music before, and that C-shaped ear that's there, that's the music ear, as I said. So, as
I
they
see
say,
that
music
now.
is a savage beast, and when a child's carrying on, we quite often view them that way. With him, it's very much the music.
Yeah, I see that. It reminds me of like the Cliff Notes. Not like Cliff Notes, but I remember. It's trying to remember what it is for the bass. Theirs is different. I'm trying to remember it because I know like, there's a treble clef. So I'm like trying to remember what it was for the piano because they've got the backward C. Like look to it. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, the reason we have ears is so it collects the sound and channels it into the ear channel. If you've got a nice C-shaped ear, it's going to bring the sound in more smoothly, and so a natural gift for music. So using music to quieten him down, lift them up, and when they're studying the later years, music's going to be the way, and especially when they start getting into their emotions as teenagers, keeping an eye on, because listen to the type of music they're playing. That will tell you a lot about what's going on inside them.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially with teenagers nowadays.
Yeah.
To really be able to help them out. So I can see that where this would benefit, because what is the profiling overall? Like, what does it all entail?
Well, it's all about building a relationship with people, understanding and connecting with them. And, we've just been talking about a physical feature. That's one of the modalities that I'm using. And it's probably the most powerful. Yes, we've got a lot of excitement with things like body language and micro expressions. We had the Light of Me show on TV that was all the research was done by Paul Ekman originally, one of the main players in the game. Then we've got the mentalist side of things, looking at body language and other things. Body language and micro expressions have been around for, they've been around as long as we've been around, but the understanding of it has been around for quite some time. Because I think Paul started his research in 1969, and when he did his thesis, going to the Faray tribe in Papua New Guinea, and working with them to work out which expressions which were universal. Those things are quite sexy when you're looking at CSI and NCIS movies and all that sort of thing. But I'm all about building a relationship with somebody. It's not about, if I use the micro expressions and body language, it's not as a lie detector, but as a truth seeker. What I want to know is, first of all about that person, how they like to be spoken to, how they like to be treated, how I need to change the way I like to be spoken to match the way that they need to be spoken to. Once I've got that, then I know what language to use, and when I'm talking to them, I've got the feedback from the body language and the expressions that tell me, have I read them right? Is there something emotionally going on, and are they telling the truth? But as I said, using that as a truth seeker, so if they're not telling me the truth, why aren't they telling me the truth? It could be in the middle of a sale and I realize something emotionally is going on. Well, I know they're not listening to me doing a sale. I better stop talking about that and see if I can uncover what's going on. And if I can help them with that, and if I can, then I build even stronger rapport with them. There's greater trust. And because I've gone through that process, it's a genuine trust that they have for me, because I've been genuine in trying to help them. So the facial features, and this is where a lot of people listening to this might go, ooh, this is a bit woo-woo. This is a bit clairvoyancy, what's going on here. But it's pretty simple. If you lift weights, you're going to build muscles. Any repetitive movement of a muscle is going to shape it. And so at the same time, the body language and micro expressions, express what we feel inside. So it's showing that everything we feel inside, we express outwardly. So while you're sitting and concentrating and really thinking and pulling expressions, you're pulling expression over and over. So on your face, you're going to create ridges and crevices, wrinkles and other things. Like looking at you, I can see that you've got these little raised sections above your eyebrows. That's about detail. You need detail. Yes, you're going to analyze it as well. Make sure all the detail's there. But I know that once you've got it, it's like, just give me the best way to do it and get the hell out of the way and let me get it done. You haven't got time to muck around. So the face tells me that. So I know straight away how I need to deliver information to you. Anything I present to you, better have all the detail there. If you're going to go looking for it, you're not going to be happy because it's taking you away from the action of getting things done. And so I know that. So it puts me in the position of being able to tune my transmitter into your receiver. So talking to you the way that you want to be spoken to. This is all about building relationships. And then I use the body language and the expressions just to give you that feedback. Because even though I've profiled tens of thousands of people, I'd never assume that I've got it right. If somebody said to me the other week, how accurate is this? And I said, well, nothing's 100% accurate. And I've profiled that many people. I've never assumed that I was right, but I'm yet to be proven wrong. And because it's a combination of traits, each trait will tell me something, put the traits together, and it shows me that person's personality. And in reality, we've got no two people on the planet have the same personality. This is why I moved away from any psychometric profiling that put people in boxes. And that's where this has all come from.
I like that because I don't fit in the box. None of us do.
No.
It's like they always try to fit us into boxes, especially in the traditional therapy. And I'm like, well, we're not all the same. We all have different backgrounds. I mean, like even identical twins, they still do things differently.
Yeah. One will lead, one will, because even if they were joined at the hip, if they're looking in a different direction, they're going to take in different information, and that's going to impact on them. So I think it was the Air Force, I think it was the American Air Force who worked out that there is no such thing as normal. They looked at what the average person was like. They designed a chair, in the cockpit for the fighter pilots, that was based on what they thought was an average of everything. Nobody fitted it. It was a total waste of time because there is no such thing as an average, or there's no such thing as normal, really, because we all vary all the time. We talk about, I do a lot of work in the area of mental health as well with the Campfire Project and the Business of Smiles, which are two charities that I part run one and I run the other one. And that's all about being able to recognize the difference in everybody. Once you do that, the person that you're talking to, and they feel that you're treating them as an individual separate from everybody else, they feel like they're being trusted. They're more likely to open up and share. I'm more able to help them out when I'm talking to them.
And that would help. That helps a lot then too, because they get that validation.
That's exactly right.
I was going to say now earlier when you were talking right before the Campfire Project that you had mentioned about for the personality traits or the character traits. And I was wondering, would that help somebody like with employment then too, to know for their employees so they can catch if they're unhappy, or like when you were saying about like for my eyebrows, like for example, like the ridge above that, I'm just like, give me the details, move out of my way, because that's just, you're accurate on that. So I was wondering, would that help hire the right employees? And then to know if the employees are starting to have difficulties so that maybe they could potentially help an employee out that may be going through mental health issues.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, first of all, when we're happy, we're more productive. When we're doing things that match our personality, we're happier. We're more, we create more. So any organization who's not using this is throwing money away, because we know in Australia, the stats are showing that when you've got 40% of the people who feel that they're being bullied, their performance drops anything up to 70%. The people who are watching that, their performance will drop 40%. The average performance levels that are lost in an average size organization is about 29-30% of their profits are gone, simply because people aren't working at their best. all the reports that are coming out at the moment are showing that all small and medium-sized businesses have had problems with at least 50% of their staff, with the turning up late and other things, people not knowing their rosters. The thing is, if you let's start at the very early phase, and I'll just take it right through the whole lot. At birth, we can pick up to anything up to about 10 traits in a newborn child. By the time they're 5 years old, there's about 24 traits. By the time they're 10, there's about 40 traits. Before they pick their final subjects for school, we've got about 60 traits out of the 68 traits. There's a few that sort of really develop into our early 20s. So if we're able to read traits in a child, we can see what gifts are being passed down. We've got a good idea of what they're going to be like before they get to school, where they're going to fit the education system. We know what hobbies and sports will suit them. Before they pick their final subjects at school, we know what type of careers will suit them. So instead of giving them the job guide and go read this, it's a white telephone residential directory as far as that goes. Or you say to them, look, here's a couple of jobs that may match your personality. Go and check these out in the job guide. So they're making their own decisions. They're doing their own research, but they're given some direction on where to start. It's like giving them a yellow telephone book directory of services. Then when they pick their final subjects, they're more likely to go off to university and complete their courses. Because how many people have got university degrees that they don't use? I even know people who have got second degrees and don't use it.
Way too many people out there. That's I've been telling people. I'm like, there's no sense in going to college until you know what it is that you want to do. There really isn't. I mean, I would have saved tons of money if I would have just picked one, if I already knew what I wanted to do to begin with.
See, a lot of people will say to kids when they leave school, go and have a gap year. Go and learn, work out what you want. But that's 12 months they can spend out there doing that. Whereas we've got a good idea long before they even get to that age, what that will suit them. They then go into, because we've got people over here in Australia who were saying, got degrees who were saying, do you want fries with that? That's the, they're working in McDonald's and places because they can't get into those careers. Well, they don't want those careers. But if you have got, what career will suit you, you go off to university, you do your course, you then go into that particular field, you're more likely to stay there because it's something you like to do. At the same time, if you're happier at work, you're more productive for the company makes more money. Then you go home, you're happier as well. If you're miserable at work, you're going to take this rubbish about leave your work life at work and your home life at home. We're emotional beings. It's impossible. We take it with us. So we take the problems of the workplace back home, and that causes problems with our spouse. Next thing you know, that can even lead to domestic violence. And the kids are miserable as well. So there's bullying going on in the household and things like that. For no other reason that the situation, the environment was not healthy. It wasn't the people that were wrong. It was the situation that we put those people in, or that they put themselves in. At work, if they're more productive, the company's making more money. So if the business owner knows how to read the person, knows what tasks and jobs that will suits their personality, they then put them in those roles. And the person, as I said, is more productive. You then, by being able to watch the body language, the expressions, the rest of it, bring it all together, whether your staff are working at their top performance. You don't have to micromanage them, and that's where most businesses go wrong, because when they say, well, I've got to watch my staff, and they'll micromanage, the staff will only do what they have to do to get by. And so the work they're doing is definitely nowhere near as productive. If you trust your staff by putting them in the right jobs, letting them feel that they belong, that they contribute, that they're valued, when you're not there, I guarantee they're going to still be working hard. They'll be coming up to you with ideas as well, because they feel that they own it. They have a place. And the place that you have, you take pride in it. You want to look after it, whether that be at work or at home or anywhere else. And this is where, we're missing the thing. We're saying we've got to put all these new systems in. We were talking about computer systems and everything else earlier on before we started.
Yep.
The most important thing is getting your relationships right. There is no such thing as a business relationship. Every relationship is human to human. Businesses don't talk to each other. The people in the business talk to each other. So once we realize that every relationship is a personal relationship, then we're moving in the right direction. and put that together, and people will feel that they belong, they contribute. And the old saying, you've got to work on your business, not in your business. Well, you can't when you're micromanaging. You can't when you haven't put the people in the right positions. You've mismatched them with the jobs they should be doing. And so you're going to be losing money. But if you treat people in that way, you can go on holidays and the company will still grow in your absence. And that's where people should be looking at, how do I build this so that, because think of it from your own personal view. People will say, well, I'm running a business and, their lives are theirs. I'm paying them for their work. Well, you're paying them for their work, but you're not getting the productivity because you haven't taken that little bit of time out to make sure you had the right people in the right jobs and you made sure they were treated the right way. As
That's
they say,
true.
if you look after your staff, they will look after your customers. And that's the best way to look after your customers, because if you're just looking after the customers and your staff aren't, you're losing customers hand over fist. But if you look after your staff, they will then look after your customers and you'll make more money.
That's true. Because a person notices that, like, when they go into different places, like even around town, like if you shop local, I'm sure you notice it. If you shop local, there's people that are willing to help you. They're more friendly. They're more there to guide and help you. Like, they want to help you, versus you go to places like Walmart and just the big box places. They don't care. They're just walking around doing their own thing. They're not there to actually help you. They're more for a paycheck versus the local.
Yeah. Well, test it out when you do go to places like Walmart. When you're going out through the checkout. Just watch the people. When you're in the line, watch the people who are working at the checkout, and you see their posture and everything else. And then when you come up and you're being served, look for something that you like. It might be the color of their eyes. It might be something that they're doing. I quite often compliment some of the ones on the way in which they're packing the bags that I've got there, all my products going in. And I'll make a comment about that. I'll ask them about their day. Watch their posture change. And at that moment, their performance changes as well. So those that are packing the boxes that weren't looking, just throwing things in, all of a sudden they take more care. Because everybody wants to feel that they're valued, that they belong, that they contribute. It's the same with your partner, your love relationships. If people don't feel that they're valued, that they belong, that they can contribute, then there's not going to be any sex or anything else coming out of it, and the person's more likely to walk out on you.
True.
And so this is the thing. It's your relationships have got to come first. People say to me, but you've got to have a good product and service. Yes, you do. It's important to have the relationships. It's important to have the good product or service. The one that has the priority, though, is build the relationship, because you don't build the relationship, you never get the chance to show people how good your product or service is.
That is very, very true. And like everything that we've been talking about in general, even though I'd asked you about like for the employment, that still all pertains very much to the children as well. Like in schools, because then they can get along with each other better. I can see how this would help, the parents be able to get along with their children better, not just their spouse, but being able to get along with their children as well.
Well, if I might, I'll just share a couple of my clients, and they're telling everybody, so it's quite okay for me to share their stories. One mother, this is about 12 years ago now, when her son was 6. I was doing a workshop for her. She used to run a singles group. Where do you go to meet people without going to pubs and clubs? And so I did an event for her on that weekend called How to Avoid the Psychopath and Other Practical Dating Tips. And it was done in a big theatre with the balcony and everything else. And she had her son there this afternoon, and he was running around making noise and everything else. But I was still able to work with the group without any problems. But at the end of it, she said, can you profile him? And I said, well, will he sit still for me? And she said, no. And I said, well, can you take some photographs? Because facial features don't change overnight. If I've got your features, I've got your personality. And if I've got a photograph today and a photograph of years ago, I've got a good idea of what things have happened in your life in the meantime as well, whether you've been through stress or good times and things like that. But she sent the photographs to me, and yes, he was in different outfits. So even she had trouble getting 5 photographs taken at the one time. I profiled him, gave her a report back. And in those days, I used to use a written one. And it was good that I did then, because she took it to the school and the after schools care. The after schools care didn't want him anymore. The school wanted him to be more heavily medicated to get him to fit into the classroom. And it was all about him fitting in, not about his welfare. And she told each of them that if the others were, the other person was doing it. So she told the teachers, the after school would do it. She told the after school, the teachers are doing this. If you don't do this, it's not going to work. It's going to fail, and you'll be responsible. Neither parties wanted to be held responsible. They put it in place. They said that he would never do presentations in front of the class. At the age of 7, he was standing in front of the class doing presentations. A year and a half later, they were able to let the psychologist go, didn't need him anymore, and with the doctor's approval, reduced his medication. At the age of 11, he wanted a birthday party with all of his mates, and she dreaded it at first, but had it. She said it was noisy, but it was just a noisy boys' party. At the age of 14, they did bring the psychologist back in then because it was puberty was setting in, and I thought somebody else can handle that. Thank you very much. And then at the age of 16, one of the girls at school had put a post up on the bulletin board that she had been kicked out by her mother. Her grandmother wouldn't let her in. She'd actually self-harmed and she was suicidal. Nobody did anything about it, but this young fella, Jack, he said to her, look, you're coming to see mum. He rang his mother, told her what was going on, said, could I bring her over? She stayed with them that night. They were able to then get her into the right support. Now, the principal didn't do anything. The school teachers didn't do anything. Only Jack did. This was a boy that everyone said would never amount to anything. He's now an entrepreneur. And as his mother said, the conversations they've had all the way through have been absolutely magic. She said, she can talk to him about anything and the wisdom that comes from him. That never would have happened if he'd been medicated through all of those years. And so that's one area. The other one, I profiled a 5-year-old boy and a 7-year-old girl for their father. This was 7 years ago. The 5-year-old music trait, as his father said, he was always manic. He was always, so much energy. And he thought, he needed medicating. But he wasn't getting on with his son. He said, it's really hard. And I said, well, number one, he had a music trait was the main thing that I could see, and plus some other traits. But on the music trait, told him how to handle that. He did come back to me. He said, Alan, talking to you costs me money. I said, what? And he said, my son, we found out he really does love music, and now we're up for dance lessons and piano lessons. And I said, well, wipe the smile off your face while you're complaining about the money. And he's got this great relationship with him. His daughter, the young boy's sister, she had 2 traits I could see that were going to be a problem at school. One was critical perception, or not critical perception, judgment variation, I should say, where she would have ideas that nobody else would pick up. But because she wasn't analytical like you, she just wanted the overview, least amount of information to make a decision. If she was talking to somebody who was more analytical and she came up with an idea, especially if it was a school teacher, the school teacher wanted to know more about it. If she couldn't explain it in satisfaction to the other person, over a while she'd be told to sit down and be quiet. And kids who have that trait usually cop that through school. And so when they go into the boardroom, when they were asked to give their ideas, withhold their ideas. We lose a valued resource when that happens. But she also had a pioneering trait. And I knew between those 2 traits, she would have a problem at school. The pioneering trait was she liked to do things that nobody else has done. She wanted to be the first. Well, I gave her father information about how to handle that. Recently, he did a Facebook Live and he burst into tears talking to the other guy who asked him about things that were happening with his daughter. Now she's 14. At the age of 14, she's now in the under 16s basketball for the state. And so she's really achieved there. But when she was 7, the traits I said he should look at, she became a published author on Amazon at the age of 8. She started her own coaching business by writing her own affirmation cards and taking those to school and giving out to the kids. And her father said, that's costing me money. I said, what? He said, well, she writes the affirmation cards, we duplicate them, we laminate them, and she takes them to school for the kids. And I went, yeah, so you're talking about the cost of laminating. He says, no. He said, we've got a deal that every new affirmation that she writes in her language, not going and researching on the internet and writing down an adult one, but writing in her language that the other kids will understand. You say, I have to pay her $1. I said, what are you up to? He said, $25. I went, well, stop complaining. When you get to 2,500, well, then come and talk to me. But, this is the whole thing. If we can read our children, we understand how they need to be spoken to. We know with girls between the age of 11 and 15, we'll find that more than 5% will try and commit suicide. The boys from 15 to 19% here in Australia as well are the highest achievers at committing suicide of all the ages. And then after that, it's in their 30s and 40s, mainly because they're taking redundancy and things like that. And their identity as a hunter, as a provider, is gone. And so they question their actual place on the planet. But if you've got children at those ages, you want to make sure that when they've got stress and everything else, they come and talk to you. There is nothing more devastating than having a teenager pass away. The impact that has, every kid at school is impacted, the families around it, their family. It's hundreds of people who are affected by that death. But if the parent is connected to the child feels safe to come back and talk to them. And it also disempowers some of the molesters and pedophiles that are out there, because they, people who abuse children will manipulate the child and tell them if they tell anybody, there'll be shame and everything else that goes with it. And the child then doesn't say anything. But if the child's got a great connection with the parents because the parent really knows how to talk to them and they've built that relationship, the child's just going to go, oh, no way, straight back to the parents and tell them what's going on. And so this is how everything's impacted. It's like with the Campfire Project, I created that with a hashtag We Together, because everything's connected. And if we work together, we solve our problems. So in a family situation, it's very much hashtag We Together. It's a case of know your children, know how to talk to them, have that bond with them so that they feel safe to come and see you and talk to you. Not as a friend, but as their parent, knowing that their parent is somebody who nurtures and protects them and everything else, which is far more powerful than having a friend. Because friends will walk away, whereas a family, parents who really care, won't.
I agree with you 100% on that, because that's a lot of what not a lot, that is what my mission is to recreate that parent bond, because there's too many children that, like you said, they do commit suicide. Because their parents are not connecting, because they've got the smartphones, they've got all the social media, they got all this stuff, and the parents aren't talking to their children. And the parents don't know how to help their children. They've lost touch with reality way too much. And for me, it breaks my heart, because my kids, we don't have the social media, we don't got the tablets, they don't get that stuff. I'm like, we don't need that.
That's it. So a lot of the men, the women, the mothers who are listening to this, I'm sure will be the ones who will be going, I need to know more about this.
Yes.
But the ones who I really want to jump on board are the fathers. At the moment, roughly 50% of families, marriages break up. In a lot of cases, the father then becomes absent. They might have been physically or emotionally absent before that because they were working in the work all the time, trying to provide for the family. But what we found is that boys, especially teenage boys, they need to have their fathers around them. And I explained in a couple of interviews just recently where I was talking about boys will be noisy, they will carry on and everything else, especially when they get into their teens. They will roughhouse, they'll even behave badly in public. It's the same as watching young bucks in the bush. The bucks will charge at each other around springtime. They're jockeying for position. Where do I fit? All trying to be alphas. And what happens is we let them do that so they can then get that out of the system, get some sort of identity. But this is where the older men were supposed to step in and go, rightio, now you've got that out of your system. Let's forget about being an alpha and become a real man. Become a man and not trying to be the man. Because when you're trying to be an alpha, then competing with everybody else, lonely place, it's no real support. And a lot of boys will grow up and never really go into manhood, no matter how old they get, because they're still going to be boys, because they're still trying to be that young buck who is the man trying to be better than everybody else. And we see it in our politicians, we see it in our sporting stars, and we see it in our entertainers as well. All the egos and everything else. Whereas somebody who wants to be the best version of themselves whether they're still with their partner or not. I teach people how to co-parent their children. And because my first wife left and I had 3 boys to raise on my own. And I realised as they grew up, if they didn't respect her, they weren't likely to respect the women that they were connecting with. So
And that's
I
not good.
built a relationship with her to co-parent the boys, so that she was brought back into the family type thing. And as I said to her, my job is to help them respect you. But once they do respect you, and by the way, they'll always love you, but to get them to respect you is the first thing. But once I do that, your job then is to maintain it. So we had to work together at that point. I got them to that point where they respected her, and then she then maintained it from there. And it's a matter of choice how you handle things. I looked at it and thought, right, if I bagged her about anything, I'm telling my boys that half of them is no good, because they're made up of her DNA and my DNA. And it's the same thing with the mothers, having a go at her ex, talking to their kids, whether it be boys or girls, you're still going to damage them. And boys need the men around them, or otherwise they're never going to go from boyhood into manhood. It takes a male to take them through that, because we learn not from being told what to do, but by watching. And if we've got an older man who is behaving the right way, they have been through that stage of the young buck. They've now moved on to doing the right thing, and the boys will then follow that, because the most horrific crimes against women have been actually conducted by boys who didn't have a father. The father was totally absent because of divorce, or, as I said before, physically and emotionally absent within the household. So we need to work with both. We don't have to live together, but we do have to work together.
I agree with you on the stats for about the fathers not being in the home. I know way too many men that have the criminal background just because there was no father in the home, or father wasn't there present, like emotionally present. I can't name actually a single man that I don't know that actually succeeded without having that positive male role model in the home. I don't know any of them that have succeeded, without having that. They have to have their father. That's the biggest thing that I have noticed. And it's just, is that part of like the campfire project that you have?
That's a campfire project. Yeah, when I first put it together, see, working with men in business, they were the 2 things that came up all the time. Was the fact they didn't know their role at home, because they thought, I'm a baby boomer, and after me there was a Gen X, and we were all about our identity, be able to provide, come back and go out, kill the beast and bring back and feed the family. That's virtually what it was all about.
Yeah.
And we were doing that. So we're out there getting the resources, but then we were told we're physically and emotionally absent. And we go, okay, we come home and we spend a lot more time at home, and then we're not bringing the resources in. And we're going, we can't be in 2 places at once. And that was causing deep frustration. At the same time, political correctness and gender equality. I believe in gender equality, but the way it's been done has not worked. It's been these quotas which have caused a lot of problems. Political correctness, we don't fix a problem. We put a Band-Aid on things, and we therefore divide people even further. And so the men were frustrated at work. They said, right, we're so worried about saying the wrong thing. And when you focus on something, that's what you get. So worried about saying the wrong thing, they would say the wrong thing. And so that then blew out of proportion. So they were so frustrated. And I realized that was leading to bullying in the workplace and also some domestic violence. And so I thought, right, men needed a safe place where they could come and sit and talk. And so I thought, right, I went through initiation into a tribal, Aboriginal tribes back in 50 years, when I was 50, 20 years ago. And that was when I was working with terminally ill patients, and I needed some answers for why they were reversing their conditions. And so through some chance meetings, met a group, got invited out bush, learnt their culture, which was all about love, humility and respect. They were the main 3 pillars. It was bringing boys into manhood. So I thought, right, men needed a safe place where they could sit and talk, tell their stories. But I didn't want it to be a men's group, because men's groups on their own, women's groups on their own, Me Too, Men Too, yes, those 2 where we'll find all the problems that are out there. And we needed that, highlight the problems, but they're never going to be the solution to the problems, because they're pointing fingers at other people all the time. When you point fingers, just get somebody to do that to you, it aggravates you. So we need to work together. So I created the hashtag We Together. got the men. I had women in the group. I'd interview the men. Once I got to about 20, 30 men, I'd started doing panel discussions. And now we would talk about drugs, alcohol, masculinity, femininity, the point, what do you call it, the toxicity of both masculinity and femininity, because it exists on both sides. And that was when the women started sending me personal messages, because I originally wanted the women to be able to hear how men could speak when they felt safe to do so. And it really worked, because the women sent me personal messages going, we love these men. We've never heard men talk so passionately and so deeply about their emotions. At the same time, we've never heard them speak so wisely about how we can improve our communities and society. And they said, is there any chance we can get involved? And I went, yep. I've been waiting for you to put your hands up. Brought the women into the one-on-ones, into the panel discussions. There is no restrictions to gender, religion, culture. Everybody's welcome in there. There's only 2 questions you have to answer when you first come in. It's the same question asked in 2 different ways. Will you respect everybody? Everyone said to me, why the 2 questions, the same question? I said, there's your 2 chances. You don't get a third. The moment anybody is disrespectful to anybody, they're out. The oldest man I've interviewed was 99 years old. The youngest to actually conduct an interview, where he interviewed his father, was 9 years old. We've had all genders and cultures. Everybody is welcome to put their hand up and tell their stories. I've spoken with all the different genders, people who transition from male to female, females to male, lesbians, gays, heterosexuals. Everybody is welcome in there, because, as I said before, no 2 people on the planet have the same story. Everyone's got a different story, different personalities. So everybody there has their story is valuable. And I started out being the only one, having the pleasure of sitting there and feeling that respect that they would open up and tell me their stories. We had some horrific stories that came out, and some that people said, I've never spoken to anybody else before. But my job was to be the eyes and ears and not the mouth. So if I did ask some questions, usually I sit there for 45 minutes. If the person's talking, I won't interrupt them, because their unconscious mind is steering the conversation and finally getting to the conscious mind that hasn't been listening to it, what the unconscious mind's been trying to tell them. So I sit there and hold that space for them. I usually say it's the best therapy they've ever had. And I go, well, you've had the best therapist yourself. Your unconscious mind has finally got through to you. I just facilitate the space. And so the group has grown. We've been interviewing people all over the world. And now 2 of the guys that I put together, introduced about 2 years ago, they had only up until recently had only finally met each other face to face. They had been running a charity now for 2 years between the 2 of them, over StreamYard, over Zoom, and it's called the Business of Smiles, where they go out into the public, meet people, and talk to them, and people usually get their attention very quickly, because they're wearing big smiley T-shirts plus these very bright yellow socks, which have these little yellow dots all over them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, the black dots. Tough times you're going to go through in your life. They're going to happen. You're not going to get out of it.
True.
But the yellow, the warmth, the into sun, the support, the right support of having around you, camaraderie of friends, right therapists, etc. They walk up to people, thank them for hanging in through COVID, through the fires, the floods, etc. Thank them for supporting other people. Ask them if they can give them a pair of socks. If the people take the socks, which most times they do, they then ask if they can tell them the story. They tell them a bit more about the black dots and the rest of it. And that usually means that people then just break down and just start talking about what they've been through. And so their target now is to run from Sydney to Melbourne, which is about 1,300 kilometres. It'll take them about 2.5 weeks to do the run, going through all the villages and all the townships, handing out socks and starting conversations. Their target is 10,000 socks to start 10,000 conversations on mental health.
That's
and the
awesome.
more we talk about it, the more we remove the stigma of it. Because getting back to what I was going to say before, that everybody is on the mental health scale. A lot of us are very lucky to be at one end of the scale. But as you get out of bed one morning and you kick your toe, all of a sudden you're feeling really cranky and everything else. We slide up and down that scale every day, but how far we slide down and how far we stay at the other end, it's a matter of our circumstances. And people should not feel stigma around that, but just realize that their circumstances, their environment, how they've handled it has kept them in that position. So by having the right people around them, their handling of it can change. We may not be able to change their physical environment, but they're able to deal with things differently. They're able to see it in a different light. And so this is, that's where my profiling has led me to, is leaving that legacy. As they say, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others in the community isn't always will be eternal.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a beautiful way to end all this too. I really appreciate your time and energy, Alan, in all of this. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you one more time?
Well, my website, which is alanstevens.com.au. And as I said, if they want to do, give themselves a bit of a lead up with reading people and building relationships, just put the / after that and the word free, FREE, and they can get that free course. And then from there, off my website, there's a contact form if they would like to have a chat with me. And I'm always happy to have a free chat with people.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for your time and your energy. Not just you, Alan, but also the time and the energy of our audience as well for listening to the Healing for the Soul podcast. So be sure to follow me, Robin Stoltman, or Healing for the Soul on social media, and my guest as well. Do you have social media, Alan?
Yep. I can send those over if you like. You can put those in the show notes. There's quite a few different areas they can find me.
Awesome. I will definitely do that. Thank you.
Thank you.